have some PRs they wanted to review this week. Marian, we usually start out this way, I guess.
Yeah. I have one, just not that big, just a fix for underlay.
Okay.
So if there's anything, if there isn't anything else, I'll start.
Yeah, go for it. I just had one little thing to talk about later.
Hold on. Okay, now I got it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so quick background, we still have some unresolved parts with the underlay. We need to properly build the underlay headers of the packet, underlay Ethernet, underlay IP. So this fixes one of the things, and I also added some clarifications. So previously we had source IP after NCAP disconnected from the virtual IP that the packet came with. So they could be theoretically programmed different. So I am fixing that by removing the underlay SIP from the appliance over here. So this is gone. And it will be based on the VIP table lookup. So if we have a hit on the VIP table, meaning it's one of our virtual IPs, we just copy that virtual IP into the metadata underlay source IP for the future encapsulation. So now it is solely based on the VIP table. So we have already APIs to program that, and now we're just making sure that it will be the same in the NCAP. Yeah, and the small comment for the appliance table, that this table should be implemented using underlay SAI. So this is still a pending work. There are still attributes to this table. If you see, there is the underlay source MAC, which corresponds to SAI switch attribute default MAC, something like that. And also we should probably properly program the neighbor MAC. So this will be added later. For now, I'm just removing the SIP because it belongs to the virtual IP table, this value. Yeah, so there is no API changes. This table does not generate API, so it doesn't affect anything. Yeah, so it's just the behavioral model. Oh, sorry.
Marian,
yeah, any questions?
Marian, I have kind of a 20,000-foot question. Where is there a way for us to convey like how far we are in terms of pipeline definition? It seems like we're doing things incrementally, and we can all appreciate the week by week changes, but like where are we on this journey? I don't really have a good sense of that.
I'd say we are pretty close on VNET to VNET. What we are still missing is one pull request by, if I'm not mistaken, Vijay, which is to add an abstraction for VNET, which will be exactly mapping SAI APIs and behavioral model to control plane to the gNMI APIs. And then we are pending some of the clarifications and examples for inbound routing. Maybe it will require some change. And after that, I am almost confident we can declare that VNet to VNet flow is pretty much finalized, APIs at least. Then in the behavioral model, we can still improve on that, but it will be just, I don't know, stuff like maybe IPv6 support somewhere is missing, like connection tracking is not yet fully implemented, so we don't have stateful ACL. But just for testing one packet, I think VNet to VNet is like, I don't know, 1 to 2 weeks away.
Well, that's good, because it would be probably a waste of effort to do any, let's say, comprehensive test cases until some of these things are stable, right? Because every test would break every time we do change like this, or some would. So we need to pick a point where we say, okay, we think we're 95% stable on the on some things. We can always be adding features later that require new test cases, but we don't want to have a lot of churn, right? It'd be really labor intensive to have to redo tests because we decide to move something, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the interface for tests, since it's SAI, if we're talking about SAI Thrift,
yes,
as I said, seems to be like, we have redone ACLs. This is by Mukesh. Looks like that's how they should be. It supports all of the atomic updates, all that. So I don't expect much more changes. And it was helpful to have a reference from Sonic Design to see the control plane APIs and schema, and to be able to cross-reference that. So that way we found everything that was still not okay with the behavioral model. And now I am much more confident and can say that it almost matches. We are a few commits away.
Good. We can maybe somehow as a team collaborate on defining some, let's say, exemplar test cases that make a nice vertical slice through everything and expose all the assumptions, right? Just to make sure, like a sanity check. And then once we think that's good, we can then elaborate on test cases, right?
Yeah. I think as a base point, there is a nice kind of test case description in the Sonic Design. We just need to expand on that by using the conversion to SAI APIs, and but it's a base that I probably will start with.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same vein, I just want to, oh, sorry, Chris.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So in the same vein, I just wanted to find out, as we are, uploading SAI APIs in OCP repo. And I guess I heard in one of the calls that Microsoft is picking up some of those header files and integrating into the Sonic, for Dash use case, and then testing them out. Are we getting any feedback in that respect to see that, it is going well, or are they finding any issues that it's from the mapping perspective, or it's not really? So we are testing on our side, and as you mentioned, the Pensando team also helped out in terms of mapping from the schema to the APIs. But there is another avenue from where we can get any feedback is from Microsoft, and I just wanted to see that are we receiving anything from their side?
Well, I guess that's why we're doing all these changes. That's that's mostly based on feedback from Microsoft.
No, I guess my question was, Marian, is that yes, on the feedback we are doing all those changes, but as they carry out a real, where we are testing it at the SAI level, right? And Microsoft is integrating it at the Sonic level. I just wanted to find out that are they finding any issues there that they're feeding it back to us and then saying that, hey, this does not match, or has, there are some of the things that we need to really fix or so forth, right?
Yeah,
That was my question.
I think we're talking about the same thing. If you go to the dash repo, there is, I will be updating it today, by the way, but there is this table, FDB to SAI mapping. This is basically both my feedback to Sonic and Microsoft's feedback to SAI. This table, let me show it to you. Yes, this one. The goal of providing this table, oh, where is it? Oh, it's not at the end. Here it is. You see there is a mapping from the FDB table to SAI attributes. This is essentially what the Sonic implementation needs to code. And all of the blank spaces, comments in this pull request, questions, inline, this is everything that is that was not yet finalized. So all the feedback was contained in this table. You can go to this pull request and check the feedback from both sides. It's called
good. Okay.
FDB to SAI mapping. Yeah, please review that. It's very useful to understanding how the Sonic design maps to our SAI APIs.
Okay, no, good. That's good. Thank you. So I think coming back to this topic of VNet to VNet use case validation to say that everything is ready and it's working. So at one point, the community is working towards from the testing point of view. Do we know the timeline by which perhaps Microsoft plans to finish their internal testing and then come back with the feedback that okay, they have also achieved the VNet to VNet thing?
Well, that's a question to Microsoft. I'm not sure if anyone is present from the team.
I'm here, and Prince is here, and who else is here? It's just us. So what's the question again, honey?
So my question is that some internal integration happening at Microsoft, as we all know, right? Taking all the SAI APIs from those OCP SAI repo and then integrating with Sonic and then validating the VNet to VNet use case. So I just wanted to understand what is the timeline by which
ASAP?
Yeah,
No, just kidding.
yeah.
We're trying to go as fast as we can for sure. Prince, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so this implementation of AppDB and invoking the SAI APIs that we are targeting for end of August, and with that we'll try to do as much as testing possible, like using the virtual switch and the behavioral model, like or maybe like SAI-thrift. We haven't finalized on that, but the implementation completion plan is by end of August.
This will include, Prince, the controller part as well in the AppDB.
Right. So the controller part is tracked separately by like as part of the gNMI integration. So I had a conversation with them last week, so it's almost ready, and they have given me a like a not a fully GA'd version of the gNMI Docker, but like a test Docker, so that I can verify all our gNMI APIs. But yeah, but that I'm not completely sure of the timeline, like when can we be like production ready or GA ready, but yeah, it's both are in progress actually.
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, the question would be that as Prince, as you guys are doing this integration with Sonic, how are you plan to test it? In other words, like what Reshma was asking, if there is a controller or any Docker, gNMI Docker making gNMI calls to Sonic,
So,
and then
so
really carrying
typically-
it out, right?
Got it. But typically what we do for these kinds of testing, we don't rely fully on that controller, right? Because we can generate all the AppDB entry through JSON and push that to the Sonic device, right? The appliance card that is running Sonic, right? So we are not blocked or totally dependent on the controller to come and push the configs, right? So so that's once it is ready, of course, we can use that, but otherwise we will use some JSON configurations to push.
I see. So you will update
Mukesh
the
has-
AppDB
It
directly.
looks like we have Mukesh and Vijay with their hands up too.
Go ahead, Mukesh.
No, I have a PR open, so I just wanted to talk about that once you're done.
Okay, once we're done, sure. Vijay, do you have a question?
Hey, yeah, Marian, so you mentioned last time that you had some PA validation inbound side changes too, right, for behavioral model. Is that something that you're going to be raising a PR?
Yeah, but I'm still waiting for examples from Michael to make sure that my understanding is right.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing is I just wanted to discuss the VNET table PR also. Maybe, yeah, we can do that later. We can go in sequence. Maybe we can discuss Mukesh's PR first.
Great. Mukesh, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this PR is to fix the libsai error that we get when we try to create a SAI object. For example, the ENI object. So what is happening is that for the SAI P4 tables that are actually SAI objects, we're returning an object ID from SAI. And this object ID is something that's generated by the libsai. So today in our libsai reference implementation for BMV2, we don't actually push this ID into P4 itself. So that was the error. So I had raised an issue for this one, and so basically the fix is to change the API.cpp template to fill in the P4 key by first generating that object and then filling it into the key. This does not change any SAI APIs or anything. It's just a implementation change. And so the utils have changed a bit to like kind of generate an object without inserting it first. Right? But first we need to generate the index alone. Today the way it's done is along with the table insert, the index is also generated. So I've separated out the API for the util. I've also added a test cases for the ENI create. I've added it in the VNET out and both the SAI thrips, the PTF and the PY test. So one issue that I've been facing with the SAI thrift is that there was another table that was added recently, is the ACL group table, and the ENI is now having references to that table. So I changed the after I rebased to the latest, I changed the ENI create to include references to the ACL group. So this
But it could be
this works.
empty, Mukesh.
Yeah.
It's not a mandatory attribute.
It's not mandatory. I'm just trying to say that when I tried to do this, there was an issue. Currently, I have it empty, but what I'm saying is there is some issue with the dash ACL group create in the thrift alone. The VNET out test works. So I was able to create a dash ACL group and then get the group ID and fill it into the different stages here for the ENI, and it's passing. Whereas if I do the same in the thrift, this create dash shackle group fails, or actually it doesn't even reach the server for some reason. So, and it returns a null object ID and then it fails here. So currently I just hard coded the group ID and the ENI create goes through in the thrift as well. So I think, Chris, we can probably talk about this offline and what is the issue here. But for this PR, I think we are good.
Yeah, we can try to work offline. I just wanted to ask, while Marian's on the call too, is there any fixed SAI API that might be involved in this as opposed to auto-generated that comes from the code? Because I've had to manually create some fixed APIs like switch attributes and things like that. Could we be running into anything there?
No,
These are all
these are
generated.
auto-generated.
Yeah, okay. We can take a look.
I have one more PR coming in. I'll be raising. This is for that the default drop. So there was an issue for improving drop handling. So I'll be adding code to kind of parse the default drop from the JSON and then add default drop tags in all the tables, right, for table miss. So mostly there won't be any changes in the API, I guess, but there might be, I think there will be 2 instances of tables where the drop action will get removed. Because you don't want to actually have an option to configure a drop in those tables. So
that sounds
that's
good to me.
Yeah, thanks.
I might have a question about how you generate an object ID, but I will need to have a closer look offline.
Okay. So I'm just doing it based on how it was already done, except that so it was just generating a unique a global variable with an incrementing ID.
Yeah, there might be an issue from the very beginning. It might not be
Okay.
related to your pull request.
I see.
Just thinking out loud, because sometimes the object ID is used not only for referencing an object, but for other instances, which might not be relevant yet. So yeah, not a big deal.
Will you be adding a couple of reviewers to this one?
Yeah, I added Marian and Chris.
Okay, great, Chris. Perfect, thanks. It's great work. Thank you.
But I'm happy to see other people starting to write tests already.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Awesome.
I had a couple of questions. That's okay, but someone's ahead of me.
I don't think so. It's just Mukesh and
Yeah,
you.
it's Mukesh. Yeah.
Oh, okay. One question is to Prince. You mentioned in passing that you might be integrating the Sonic VS, and you also might be integrating against this behavioral model. So given all the talks we've had about the current behavioral model structure with the Dockers and the workflow, is there enough there that you can integrate to as is, or will you need some kind of changes to make it easy to integrate your stack?
So I think from my current understanding, we have everything that is required. But one thing is we haven't started on that that integration yet. So maybe once we start that process is when we realize probably some missing pieces. So
yeah, maybe we can have a little brainstorming session coming up to that point and talk about it, because I think all the pieces you need are there. It just may be a way of using them to suit your use case.
Yeah.
Like you might want to compile against libsai and not use SciThrift, right? Have your own sync key. That would be a great integration. So okay, good. Let's have that chat when the time is right. The other thing I wanted to just ask the team at large, there's been a lingering issue with which port we're sending packets out in the behavioral model. It's always sending them out port 1, just because no one's ever bothered to look at that piece of code. But can someone along the way just change the egress spec to equal the ingress port or something? Because all the packets are coming out port 1, right? We're not really, no one's ever really paid attention to that much. I mean, can we just do it along the way in another PR, or do we need a separate PR to do that? It's just one line of code. Marian, do you have any thoughts on that? We've talked about it in past.
I'll do it separately. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do it separately.
Because we'll want to start writing test cases to show that, you know, packets are coming out each port and doing the right thing. Great, thank you.
Chris, one thing I noticed while doing the PR was that the recent make, it takes a while to complete. I know it was very fast before.
Yes, the SciThrift server compile is large. Now, if you want to, depending on what you're doing, and I wanted to spend a little time trying to document typical workflows for a developer. Like if you're just compiling the P4 code and you want to see if the code works, just type make P4. You don't have to wait for everything. Do a make all when you want to run a SciThrift test, but you can do make P4, make SAI. But if you do the make SciThrift server, yes, it's large and that's beyond my control. It's as fast as I can make it given the structure. Right? It's doing.
But I'm not sure if the dependency is all like the fastest that it can be, because sometimes we see that the SAI meta is getting built multiple times, maybe at least more than once, I think. I think Vijay also probably noticed this.
Yeah, SAI meta is being done to create libsai, and then it's also being called to do the SciThrift server. But it's like a whole separate process.
I see. Okay.
I'm sure there's room for optimization, and I welcome people to get under the hood and start doing that. It's a lot of work, right, to really fine tune it, and help is welcome.
We look at it as well. We look at it as well.
Yeah, but just try to do the minimum make steps when you're like in a development cycle, and do the make all when you need it. That's the best advice I can give for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like especially when you're incrementally making changes to the SciThrift tests, like the Python tests, then if you want to test something and do make all, it gives an error at the end of a long make run, and then you go fix it and then run it again. So that those iterations are kind of longer now. That's the thing, because it's building every time. Yeah.
Well, if you're doing iterative PyTest changes, like you're just writing scripts and you don't need to change libsai or P4 code, then you don't need to make all at all. You can keep the switch and the server running the whole time and just edit the PTF tests in real time. I don't know if people caught me demonstrating that last week, but I actually showed how I was inside the SciThrift client container in a bash session running tests, and then edit the code, said hello dash peeps, run it again. It's like, 30-second cycle. There's no need to make all when you're just writing PTF tests. And so if people have questions on that and need a refresher, first of all, maybe check out the video where I show that. And you can always just contact me, but make all is like only when you really need to. It's pretty slow, but we've got a big system now. And if there's questions about the best way to do certain workflows, I'd like to capture some of that in a quick start for developers, just like bullet list of the best workflows. And then you can always deep dive if you need to learn more. It's hard to capture. It's hard to perceive all the questions people will have when you're doing this stuff. But once people start using it, it becomes clear what the pain points are. So be vocal. Squeak like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and let's make this really convenient.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. Vijay, did you have something?
So I think I just wanted to share my PR. Can you guys see the PR? Yeah, I think I think just the P4 changes we went over it last time. I think I did most of the changes, actually all of the changes that were there in the comments that Marian had. But I think there is one, when I was trying to modify the test, there is a ENI to VNI table, which is removed now. So I cleaned up the VNET out test and also the SciThrift VNET test. But there is, I'm not able to add the outbound VNet entry because we don't have that object ID fixed yet, which is coming from Mukesh's PR. So for now, I've cleaned up all the references to ENI to VNI entry, and I've not yet added the outbound VNet table entry create. So is this, should we like merge it as is and then add the VNet entry create in a separate PR? Or do you want me to wait for Mukesh's PR to go in and then make changes to this on top of?
I think I don't see anything that needs to be changed with Mukesh's pull request, so let's merge this one and then fix your VNet pull request. If no one else has any comments for the object ID fix, I can merge it. I don't believe there were any comments.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I'll add a few more tests here to create the VNet table entry and then update the PR.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
I was wondering if we could go over a few items in the project sheet, you guys?
Sure.
Sorry, have to learn how to filter here. So, how about if we filter on waiting for resource? So it looks like at some point we'll need to write APIs for state machine testing. We were supposed to check back today on connection tracking and compiler, which is dependent on the simulator. How's this one going? Do we have an update?
Yeah, it's not really dependent on the simulator, but yeah, we have all of the patches. I will be adding this.
Should I move this to on track?
Yeah, it's in progress, right?
In progress. Got it. Okay, great.
Hey, Marian, regarding this connection tracking, I think we'll be looking at the P4 side of this, right, from AMD Pensando. Can we sync up with you on what changes is going into the BMV2?
Yeah, sure. You want to have another meeting?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so let's do it next week because the engineer that's doing that is coming back from vacation. I would want to invite him as well.
Okay. Marian, on that topic, at what point will we make the BMV2 enhanced version part of this repo, if at all, or part of some, let's say, public shared project?
So there is still some work to be done. Specifically, the compiler generates, for each apply of the table, it generates another instance of the table. And when the table is self-learning, we need to maintain all of them simultaneously, like update all of them at one time when there is a add-on miss. So this is not yet complete. So this engineer, when he will actually have that working as well, we can upload that to behavioral model. And then we will have the add-on miss available and we can do stateful ACLs.
Oh, will it be actually part of the P4 Lang behavioral model repo?
No, it won't be. I don't think we have any plan to push it there at the moment. It will be a separate fork.
Okay, so it will live in the Dash repo?
Yeah, at least for now. Let's see if it's really working. If it's working, we don't have any other issues, then we can raise a question if we want to contribute it back to behavioral model.
Okay, so putting that aside for the moment, you're thinking you want to just get it stabilized a little bit, get the big problems out of the way, and then somehow transfer that to this Dash repo, and we'll build back, probably build a Docker file out of it like we're doing, and then just integrate it into this workflow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because right now we can only do packet-based testing. We cannot do connection-based testing, which is very desirable as well.
Yeah. Would that then just completely replace the current BMV2 that we're just getting from P4 Lang, build our own Docker file and run our own behavioral model with all the source code present?
I'm not sure what you mean by completely replaced, because it's just a patched BMV2, but different repo link, basically. Yeah.
Well,
we're going to use a fork.
Well, no, what I mean is right now, the behavioral model running in the Dash repo is not built in place. We're not compiling anymore. It's pulled from P4 Lang Docker Hub.
Oh, yeah, we'll need to change that.
We'll need to go back and build it from source and build a local or maybe public Docker file. Okay, yeah. So when we start getting close to that point, we probably need to put our heads together and figure out the mechanics of that, right? How to transition to that. Because where the Dash repo started a few months ago, before I started tinkering with it, was all the artifacts were in one giant Docker file, and you built everything in one place, and it was all from scratch. And now I've kind of disaggregated and reused public Docker images to the extent possible. So we'll have to figure out how to like transition from what you've got going on in your fork to what we have in the Dash repo, right? It won't just be a forklift it over. We'll have to do some massaging. But that'll be good.
Okay.
So does this BMV2 that we are using right now, does this match the current PNA spec?
The BMV.
Well, it's following V1 model. It's not PNA.
Right, we needed to add extensions, right, Marian?
Yeah, just one from the PNA.
Yeah, the current BMV2 in the Dash repo that's running all the tests in the CI pipeline is just vanilla BMV2 from P4 Lang.
And then what was the response on this in terms of the extensions, PNA extension? Are we planning to?
That's what people have been working on, kind of in a fork. It's not really visible to everybody, but there's been this ongoing development championed by NVIDIA with other people helping now. That's going to be the properly modified behavioral model that has the PNA, connection-oriented enhancement. We'll need to, basically build BMV2 from source because it's modified, and turn it into a Docker image that we can then run in the Dash repo to replace the vanilla one. So that's work in progress.
And that's what I'm displaying right here, right?
Aligning
with PNA, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah. That's the grand effort that's been going on kind of in the back room for a while. We want to promote it to the front rooms as soon as we can.
Yeah, and it said we were going to sync with, is it Roop that's on vacation, Marian?
Yeah.
Should we check back on this next week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's do that. Thank you. And then, Vijay, did you see this one? We had assigned it to you
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think this is just removing the ENI ID from the key. The change itself is simple. But since Marian had mentioned that he had more changes coming in that PA validation area, so we're just holding off on this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right thing to do. No need to go over it twice.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not, so we're just gonna pause on that. Okay. And then, did anyone want this egress port should equal ingress port? Or is this a thing on the P4 bugs?
You can assign it to me. I'll do that.
Is this Marian?
Yeah, sorry, I have
Sorry.
issues with my throat.
I'm sorry. Okay. I have to turn it into an issue. I'll do that later. Okay, I'll do that, Marian. And then the other one was, did we want to look at anything that was blocked? Oh, this one, Vijay and Mukesh, that compare the open contrail to Sandomani, blah, blah, blah. This is the whole connection tracking thing that Mario Baldi handed over.
Yeah. So
Do you need
just
some
started looking
background
at
or
this.
context on this at all?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is where like we would like to discuss with Marian about what is coming into BMV2 so that we can figure out how to go about this.
So the history of this was we were trying to decide on connection tracking, and they dug up a piece of existing open contrail, I believe it was, and we decided we should probably use that. And so the decision was made, and then Mario Baldi was going to actually do the coding. Do I have that right, guys? And then we kind of got stuck.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I think the question here was more the contrail model is only taking care of connection addition and removal to the connection table. It's not really doing connection tracking. So we were wondering, and honestly, unfortunately, I don't remember if in the past discussions we ever discussed this, whether there is an interest also in having actual connection tracking.
I believe Gerald had wanted connection tracking, and then we could actually test for whether the connections were being tracked through the model as well. Remind me, you guys, can you help me remember?
Yeah.
But Mario, what do you mean exactly by actual connection tracking? Like window
Checking
validation,
sequence number, acknowledgement numbers. The contrail model, the contrail code is not doing that. Is just dealing with adding connection to the connection table and removing them, handling the timers, which is already a lot. We have discussed a lot about it. But there's no actual tracking of the connection while it is open.
I think Gerald mainly wanted the TCP state machine transition, right? Which may be covered by the contrail itself.
Exactly, that's covered by the contrail, but that's not connection tracking per se, right? I mean, or well, you can call it whatever you want, but there is more to connection tracking, which is to keep track of the sequence number.
Yeah, right. Right, Mario, what we are talking about mainly is connection learning for stateful ACL. It's not really connection tracking with sequence numbers, with window validation, and so on. I don't believe there is such a thing required.
Yeah, but I don't know. It could be interesting to consider because, especially in the context of firewalling and security, if we keep track of the connections, but then allow packets that are not conformant with TCP, could be a security threat and a possible denial of service attack. So I don't know. I mean, I just wanted to raise the point because as we were discussing internally on what's there to implement, we got to this point, and I couldn't remember if this was ever discussed, and I guess it was not. But it may be worth discussing.
Should we set that up for the next call then, you guys? You know, because it's 10:49 now, and we could talk about this specifically in the next call if you like, or I can do a separate meeting with us and Gerald.
Yeah, well, I guess we can do it in the next call.
Okay. Would that work for everyone else?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because this is a huge topic, and I think we've spent an hour on this just before. Okay. And I'll try and hit you guys up in email as well. I'll talk to Gerald and try and get more information. Thanks, Mario, for the context. I didn't expect you to be on the call today.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that's pretty much what I have here in like the project. I'm going to call this the project view. So does anyone else have anything? And look in the chat window here.
So Chris, how do we sync up on the
It's in the chat. It's in the chat window. He said you can contact him at chris.summers@keysight.com.
Yeah, if you wanted to send me an email, or we can do a Teams meet or whatever. I tried to find you in this Teams, but I didn't seem to find it with the chat. But we can do a video meeting, walk through it.
Sure, yeah.
I'm available right after this meeting.
Marian, do you want us to focus on anything specifically this next week, or just keep doing PRs?
Yeah, as long as we still have pull requests, I think that's the most important thing to review.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, guys. Hope you have a good day.